Hey Tyler, how you doing?
Oh, pretty good, Noah, man. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. I know we talk here and there, but it's been a while since I've seen you in person. I gotta get you out to Charleston sometime.
Yeah, dude, I need to come visit. I'm itching to get out of Ohio too, so soon, soon.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for doing this. I'm not sure if you've seen any other episodes, but I just like to talk to people about their experiences working in film and kind of like their specific side of the industry as well, or even just things that they like to watch and things that have inspired them lately. So, I don't know. I guess kind of talk about what you do in film and your kind of your experience a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, my experience in film kind of started in, grad school at UNCSA. Scored a lot of student films there, and I've maintained a lot of those connections, and they've kind of sustained my ability to continue working in film. So I do a lot of stuff on an independent level. Um, a lot of short films pretty much exclusively. And then I've gotten into like commercial work as of recently, for a couple like local places, in the Akron and Cleveland, Ohio areas and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I my concentration of work these days is kind of like spread between teaching and performing as well. So I compose when I can, and I pretty much work with most of the people I work with are like my friends, which is very cool, and it allows me to like keep a lot of like passion in each project and stuff, which I try to bring to everything, of course, but it's easier when like the setting that you're going to be in and stuff like that. But yeah, man. So I do like, I'm a multi instrumentalist. I do a lot of like live recording for my scores, and live performances on percussion and guitars, and um, keyboard instruments and things like that. And I like collect strange sounds, and I love quirky stuff. So I'm always like acquiring just like bizarre sounding things and like itching to utilize them in a film context. That's like, I just love that. That gets me so excited.
What's your favorite instrument, or like kind of trinket that you use, or have used in a film, or even in commercial work, it doesn't matter, that people may not know about?
Oh man. I got one sitting over here underneath some other things, but like, I call it my secret weapon, dude. The Korg Chaosilator Pro. Okay.
What a
This is
name.
like, right? It's essentially like a touchpad synth oscillator. So it allows you to just like use your finger and create these like really dynamic like swells and textures and things. I love to layer them up. I also have a similar like, on a more like low key level. There's an app on my phone I got when I was like 15, and they still have it out. It's called Bebot, and it's just like this little like robot guy, but essentially it turns your phone screen into kind of something similar to the Chaosilator, but you can like slide your finger around. It's like, I don't know, I guess it's kind of similar to a theremin, but there's something different about it, and it just like, it gives you this direct like control over the contours of these things. I love using those. I don't get to use them a lot because it doesn't always fit, because it's like a very specific sound. But that's like I always get the most excited when I can use some of that, some of the touch screen stuff, the sliding your finger around to create like insane sounds and things. And of course, like, you can run the Chaosilator, you can turn that into a MIDI controller and control like other sample libraries and things. But it has a lot of great like built-in sounds and stuff too.
That's awesome. That's so cool. How have you found doing kind of commercial work, how you would compare that to your experience like with film? Like, do you approach it probably much differently, or?
Yeah, I would definitely say like in terms of like what music I actually write, it tends to be very different, right? Because but it in a similar fashion, like I guess I start the same way. Like the commercial, I need to know like what is, of course, what's a commercial for, right? Like
Mhm.
that's important to know. But it's like, what's the vibe or like what's the emotional context that you're trying to put this in, which I think is incredibly like similar to film. I mean, commercials, you're always trying to sell something. So it's I've never well, I almost never see a commercial that's like puts anything in a negative light or anything. So like there's kind of like this expected starting point there. But like even in film, I think every moment that you're scoring, you're trying to sell something as well. You know what I mean? Like you're trying to
Mhm.
sell that emotion or like maybe like the contrary emotion to what's being shown on screen or something. Like you're always trying to like manipulate people with music. So I think the commercial game is probably similar in that way. But I really enjoy I guess commercials are like short, so that's pretty cool. And my favorite challenge about commercial music is like how, if the client is willing and interested, like how interesting can I make like 15 to 30 seconds of music. And it's like in film, you really have to pace yourself. But in a commercial, you can really like throw a bunch of stuff at the wall. Um, if the client again is like into the sound that brings and stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of similarities, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of commercial work has like little jingles, like companies will have like little like already pre-existing jingles that they kind of use. But I've even worked with like newer clients who may not be as established. So you kind of have to create that for a new line of like commercials that they're doing or something like that. So like I found it hard to make something like 5 seconds long, but make it catchy at the same time, and make it like fun and exciting. I don't know how have you found that? Have you done any like little jingle type things with commercials or?
Man, I have not had the opportunity to like actually create a jingle for somebody, but I feel like I do it just naturally, like in my life all the time for
Yeah.
things. But like, yeah, dude, like it's like memorability, right? It's just like something that like even if it's like annoying and stupid or like is perceived that way by like the viewer and things, it's like, are they gonna remember it? And I think like I don't know, these days, especially with humor, like humor is such a we're in such an interesting like pocket of humor right now. I think with like I don't really want to call it millennial humor, but I guess for the sake of more like young people humor versus like um old people humor for the sake of the spectrum, but like
Yeah, totally.
bridging the gap between that. And like I guess everyone has a target audience, but a lot of people have like their target audience is like everyone, or they want it to be everyone. So it's like how can you portray something that's like that can be goofy while also like still maintaining the integrity of the product, I guess.
Hmm.
I don't know. That thought process comes to mind when I'm thinking about like jingles specifically, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like what jingles like can you remember right now? It's like phone numbers and then like probably the Kit Kat jingle, you know.
Yeah, there's always the like the lawyer ones or like the real estate ones, like the ones that like look like they could still be from broadcast TV that like just it's just like these companies that have been around for like generations that like to do it old school and they just have this like little three-note thing that'll play over their logo at the end even sometimes. Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, I know what you're talking about. What you kind of mentioned something that I think is interesting because TikTok has influenced a lot of like the younger generations like uh not only attention span but also like how they ingest media and in like a shorter form and that definitely affects what they like to see on in commercials and in even feature film, like it does affect and change all of those things, even if it takes a couple years. But it is a domino effect of what people find interesting and what keeps their attention. And I think marketing companies these days are like really trying to push some of those like ideas in shorter form, like TikTok ideas. And so I just think that's crazy for our industry and how it affects like how we have to adapt to what we do. And what do you think about any of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's wild. Like TikTok culture is it's just a crazy thing, man. It's like you said, it's had this like, tsunami effect on everything else, right? Like but like, the it's like a short attention span thing, I think, in some ways. And I haven't really like paid attention this way, but I could probably think of a few things that are like a few TV shows, especially that are like that have been produced and put together by people who are really attentive of like the younger demographic. And like you could see, like I'm sure you could see the like short term, like quickly moving through things like in the editing of a lot of that stuff.
Definitely.
Yeah, and you know like young people are the consumer that you want to be a part of your stuff, because it's like they're gonna live the longest compared to, like they're gonna have the most longevity. Like if you can hook them now, hopefully they live to be at least like 80 something years old, right? That's like
Yeah.
that's you get that time frame. But I mean, even I don't know, like it's always changing. And I think now, like, we could really get into the whole technology like advancement thing. But like I think things in like generations, I think, are becoming more and more different in a shorter period of time because of like quicker advances in technology. Or you know I don't know that I would necessarily call TikTok an advancement in technology, but it's definitely it's a new thing. And like we keep getting more and more new things. Like there's such a large concentration of just like new stuff. And maybe this plays into, I mean, like streaming and everything, like just the high concentration of stuff being put out on all these different platforms, which is awesome for people like us, who are like working in this field, because there's a lot of opportunity for work and everything. But like the content, right? It's like you can almost scroll through Netflix, like just looking for something to watch, like as long as you can scroll through like TikTok or something, you know, and you'll see maybe the same amount of things that you'd be into and the same amount of things that you definitely are not into but are intrigued by anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely some crazy parallels there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that it'll be interesting. You talked about a little bit about like the technology. It'll be interesting to see with how fast content is being created, and all the new tools and tech to just get it out there and just produce it as fast as possible. Is interesting. Talk to me a little bit about more of the music side with technology, because I'm very up to date with all the new editing AI features, things like that. But is there anything like that that you're aware of, like in the music industry? Obviously we have a ton of new AI songs being generated. There's the whole litigation scandal between just using artists song voices in AI generated songs and things like that. But is there anything like instrument wise as well, or anything like that that's interesting to you?
um you know I haven't dug super deep into like the AI music tools necessarily. Like in terms of instruments or like playability of things, and like how AI is potentially like eliminating the need for like actual technical skill on an instrument or something. um I think I should probably like it, it brings to mind like um well, like sampling, like a lot of like crafting like hip hop beats and stuff. I know I've heard a very similar thing about like that craft, because it's like you don't have to know how to play an instrument at all necessarily, but you can, sample other people playing instruments, and then the real skill comes with like how you treat that stuff, right? Like how you're able to like chop it up and create your own thing with like all this audio from that other people have like produced essentially,
Hmm.
so that comes to mind, but that's been happening for like a long time, so I think, and I have no problems with that, first of all, but I just know like I've heard a similar argument about that realm of like creating music.
Mm.
So I think, this AI stuff, it definitely like scares me because I've been hearing a lot of like the AI generated music, and it's like so easy for people to model or like literally produce a song that sounds exactly like, you know, blank artist, right?
Right.
Like if you want that sound. And one thing that I've had to like learn how to do is how to like essentially do that myself. Like, someone will ask for something um that sounds like, you know, whatever version of something they're trying to produce, right? Whatever like temp music they've used in a project or something
Hmm.
like that, and I have to like be able to create that. I mean, as a composer, that's not my favorite thing to do. Like I prefer to create like things that sound like me, right? So maybe in that sense, being able to generate a song that sounds like someone famous who's putting out songs, like maybe that's okay because I don't have to try to do that now. Like I can just focus on myself. But, on the other hand, it's like, you know, I think we're still in the early stages, but like when we get to the point that like you literally can't tell if, like Post Malone put out this song or like the Post Malone AI thing created this song. Like when we get to that point, I think it could really, devalue, in some ways it could just really devalue like what that music is, like on there's one tool I'm thinking of that I feel like you and I have talked about this before, and I want to say it's an Adobe thing, but I can't say that confidently, but it's essentially like a music editing tool where like you can drag in, your audio file, and it can be a complete song, and then essentially like you just start like shortening it, and it like totally just reorganizes parts of the song, and kind of like knows how to pace it and can identify like the different sections of the tune in terms of like form and everything, just like through whatever, algorithms and things are going on, and it'll just kind of like almost perfectly you know edit a song to be shorter, but you still get a couple different parts, and it paces really well for whatever you're working with. And I think, I don't know, when it comes to like that kind of work, that kind of like, I don't know, the creative side of it, right? Like I feel like in order to edit a piece of music, like you have to be like, you have to have a creative mind to like how you're going to use it to like craft the scene or whatever you're doing. And I think there's only so far that like computers can go with like really hitting the nail on the head with like emotional content. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Like there are tools right now in Premiere that I even use sometimes, that if an edit is longer than a 3 minute song, then I can just drag it out and it'll just take a minute and it'll just extend that a whole nother verse, to the fit perfectly to the edit, and it'll match my pacing with the cuts, with different cues in the music, and vice versa. I can cut all of my, dailies to fit the beats of a song with just pressing an AI button, and it is crazy. It is useful and it saves a lot of time, but like you said, there is never going to be, I think, an AI tool that can match that level of creativity, can have that like human brain behind it. Like emotion plays a lot into it. And I think it'll be interesting once you know, the narrative film world like starts even using AI in generating music, generating cuts, whatever it may be, especially in music though. Like the emotion of what you're trying to say and utilize in a scene, you know, like you're never going to be able to replicate how somebody feels. And because correct me if I'm wrong, but when you're writing music for like a scene, you try to like really emphasize what the actors are displaying on the screen and how they're feeling in the scene, right? You're trying to either match that or contrast that in a creative way, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's like, you know, because you can like you can be like, okay, this scene is like supposed to be sad, right? But that's like general mood. That like does not connect you to the image at all,
Mm.
you know? And it's like I feel like I don't know. I'm gonna say this, and I feel like I could see computers getting good at this, but you know, like humans, because they feel these emotions themselves, it's like a person can like raise their eyebrow by like half a centimeter. And if it's in a certain way, like other people will pick up that that means something. You know what I mean? And like in the context of like some other things, you know, it could mean a bunch of different stuff, or it could mean nothing too. And it's like, you know, the human element I think is really going to attach to the minuscule details of those emotions, which like when I am composing a scene, it's like I try and attach the music to like as many things that make sense within a scene. You know, it's like I want this crescendo to like perfectly align with like this person like moving their head or that eyebrow raise or something like that, you know.
Sure.
Yeah, and I just don't think that computers can, you know, mimic that right now. Um, but we'll see.
Yeah, sure. I
I
mean, we will see. I feel like it's going to be very fast in the next 5 years, even, you know?
Yeah, man. Well, yeah, once Apple Vision maps like everyone's faces, then AI can draw from all that stuff, you know.
Sure.
I Who knows?
It's going to be one large data pool, and someday everything that we're watching on Netflix is just going to be completely made up by computers. We'll see, and we won't know a
Yeah,
difference.
right. Oh,
Uh,
there's a great like Black Mirror episode kind of about this on the new season. I think it's
Joan
the
is
first one.
awful. Joan is awful. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
That's
Right, hits it on the head, man.
oh crazy. Um, Kind of shifting gears a little bit. Like, what is something that you've watched recently that you drew a lot of inspiration from, that you found that the music composition was really powerful, and like why?
That's a good question. And, you know, I'll be honest real quick. I've been kind of in this like black hole of watching Star Trek lately.
Nice.
Um, yeah, it's consumed me, and partially like it's partially just like a really great like philosophical exploration of a show, which is why it's hooked me. But the music in that show is kind of like insane to me for like a television show, you know. I'm currently watching Star Trek Voyager. I finished Deep Space Nine for, you know, if anybody knows about any of that. But all those shows are like over. Like they happen in like the late 90s to like maybe Voyager is like a little bit of the early 2000s, but I'm not even totally sure. But it's like the music, dude, is like so incredibly like, you know, romantic and like it's just so deep. It's such deep like orchestral music for something that just like aired on TV, you know, once a week.
Right.
um it's insane. It's insane to listen to, and when I'm not like caught up in whatever like philosophical socio-political thing they're like touching on story wise, I'm just like baffled by like the fact that it's mostly like Dennis McCarthy, I think, and a few other people, like how much they got away with. Because I feel like if you tried to write that music now for anything on TV, it would get canned and you would maybe get fired. Like it's so like fantastical, and I don't know, that hits me a lot. Um,
How so though?
but
How so did they approach it? That's fantastical. Like the instruments they used, or
so I mean, it's kind of like instrumentally, it's like a standard orchestra. I think it's really more like tonally speaking, because a lot of it is like very dissonant in ways that like an average musical listener like maybe wouldn't just enjoy, wouldn't listen to enjoy or something. A lot of dissonances and interesting like harmonic movements. Also, like the placement of the music is kind of really interesting to me, because sometimes like a character will say something that I almost like, doesn't seem important or something, and the music, like the way it comes in, and like with a chord that comes in behind like a line of dialogue or something, it's just like, I don't know, it's really well thought out. And I don't know a whole lot about the process of writing music for that show and how that went, or like if they ended up kind of compiling like a library of pieces written by these composers and then like edited them. As far as I know, it was pretty like it was composed to picture most of the time. Again, not sure, so don't quote me on that, but
for people listening, composed to picture, can you explain?
yeah. So like composing to picture is literally where you're writing music to uh the what's been filmed already.
Mm.
So the picture exists, like the visual element of the film exists already, and now it's like you're composing, uh and the orchestra's performing and the conductor's conducting to that image and getting it to line up that way, as opposed to like creating like a library of music, which is something that is done a lot for like reality TV and like competition shows, and really all sorts of other stuff too. But that's a very obvious one where a composer will just write a bunch of stuff, or even in shows they'll be like, okay, we need something that's like just really intense for like some action cues, and then we need something that's like sad but then turns into something really intense, and then we need something that's like the other way around, where it starts really intense and then turns into something like heartfelt, and they'll just give you these kind of like blocks. You just have to write something, and then someone will like edit those pieces to the film, and sometimes the images will change to match up with it, and then sometimes you may have to re-record things. So like um the composing to the image is like, I really prefer to do things that way, because I really love to, like, again, like I said earlier, like connect the music that you're hearing to like every minuscule detail that you're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
And you know I of course can work both ways, and sometimes you have to work the other way around. And some people who edit like prefer to edit to music. Like, I don't know if you're like that, or if you feel like you can find a rhythm more when you have a piece of music in mind.
Yeah, it depends on kind of what style I'm going for in what industry as well. If it's more commercial work, a lot of the stuff is cut right on the beat. It adds emphasis. It's going on social media, so it just draws people in. It keeps them engaged a little bit more. But with narrative film, the complete opposite, Uh, so, and most of the time anyway, the music will either come after or most of the way through the editorial process anyway. So yeah, no, that's good information for everybody listening. I I guess I wanted to talk a little bit about your experience like working on a film. We got the chance to work on Tour de McWay, which should be available for public release here soon. I'm super excited for everybody to see it. I know we put a lot of hard work into that. How did you find the process, and how did you go about tackling a short film like that with music composition?
Yeah, that's a great film, man. I agree. I'm excited for it to be available for everyone. It's, I think the process is like always more or less the same, and I think I touched on some of it earlier, but you know, I always start by like getting just as clear of an idea on like what the aesthetic is for the film, and that's not only like what is it going to look like, which usually when I'm brought in it's like before anything is even shot at all, but it's like what is it going to look like, what and another big thing is like what's like the goal, like how do we want people to be feeling while this film is happening, or like what's the scope of the film is another important thing. So I like to just get like a setting, right? Like Tour de McWay, for example, takes place almost completely in like a pretty small diner, right? So like I'll take that and I'll be like, okay, well right there I know that like my instrumentation is not going to be a large like orchestra. It just doesn't match the scope of the setting.
Mm.
And it's again, it's like an intimate kind of conversation between two brothers who haven't seen each other for a long time in this tiny place. So it's like an intimate setting, and I think depending on what you're showing and what the story is, and things like that, you can go bigger than the setting, but again, it like really depends on the context. But yeah, I just get like a good like starting point that way, and then I kind of start to, I mean, if a director has like influences for like you know to have a similar feel as like this other film that everyone knows about, things like those kind of things help, because then it gives you like an idea of like musical genre that is gonna work. um I know for Tour de McWay specifically, Andrew, the director, Andrew Kovac, he sent me like a playlist, and he likes to work that way. He sent me a playlist of songs that he listened to like while he was writing the script and kind of just conceptualizing the whole thing. And a lot of them were like guitar, like finger plucked guitar type instrumentation, a lot of like older recordings and things. So like I don't know, I want to say like there was maybe like some like Hawaiian-ish like slide guitar on there, or some like early Latin American music, things like that. And which was an interesting vibe to bring into this like small American diner kind of thing. But I was able to like take from that and say, guitars I think would work really well, just acoustic instruments, right? Like it's nothing electric, just so it is again like intimate and visceral, and like you can hear the human behind the instrument too. And that just helped me like create a template, and that's usually like a huge starting point. It's like once I get all this information, I create a template, which can either just be like a physical like handwritten list of like the instruments I want to use, or that I think would work, right? And then I can create like a project in my studio with whether if I need like samples, or sometimes I'll just create a bunch of tracks and just label them all the instruments that I'm thinking of working with. And that always tends to change as I actually start to write the music. But then hopefully I can have a cut. I think for that one, I ended up writing a lot. I think I wrote like 9 demos for the opening scene of that movie. And it took a second to really gel with, like my vision for what the music what I want the music to contain, and then like Andrew's vision for what level of that stuff he wanted in this scene, and like what he thought would reflect the things. But sometimes it takes time to get on the same page, and then
Yeah.
once we're on the same page, like it just starts rolling out, you know.
Yeah, it's a collaborative process, and a lot of different um key creatives might have a different emotion and feeling, like even in the same scene, that like they kind of want portrayed and different ideas. So I bet that's always interesting to get it all kind of mixed in together to where it's like feeling right.
Yeah, that it's like a balancing game for sure. There's a lot of compromise, but I think like that can be really inspiring sometimes.
Hmm.
It can also be like really limiting, but I also find limits to be really inspiring too. It almost like removes some of the thought and allows you to just work with like a smaller group, or a smaller amount of information.
Hmm.
But 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 yeah, like trying to match the vision between like the director is always, at least in most of the cases I've been working in, the director is like really, they're the boss when it comes to like that aesthetic that they want, right? And it's like I usually pretty quickly start to hear things in my head, and it's funny because like a lot of the times first conversations will be like, yeah, we sound like we're totally on the same page, and then I send them some music and they're like, well, like parts of it, sure, and then the process just
Sure.
rolls through and everything. It's like you can, words are one thing to agree on, but then like actual that emotional content, when it's actually there, like when you're actually feeling the music for the first time over this scene that you've been developing in your head for who knows how long, it's
Yeah.
like it's really hard to plan for all those like preconceived and like instinctual elements.
Sure. Well, that was such a good conversation about music composition. I think it's something that people, like, the average audience doesn't think too much about. And so it was some good insight, and I appreciate you doing this. I would love to have you back again sometime. And is there a website or a new project where anywhere that so people can find you, check out your stuff?
Yeah, so I'm the most active on Instagram these days. Just it's the easiest way to be versatile, like with all the things I do. But my Instagram handle is at Wizard of Hawes. And there's a link to my website, thetylerhawes.com, where you can see like some of my works and some of my reels and things like that, as well as like just various other recordings of just other stuff I do. But yeah, I'm working on a couple films right now with my friend and director Sterling Hurst. Some really fun stuff coming out of his studio. One is called Last Meal, and the other is called He Is Risen, and that's all I'm going to tell you about him. But keep
Sure.
an eye out for Sterling Hurst, because they're going to be some wild rides.
Sweet, dude. That's awesome.
Yeah, just doing that, and I have like some solo um, musical projects in the works. I'm working on a solo album, and I have no release date in mind for that, but follow me, and I'll keep you posted for sure.
Cool, man. Yeah, I'll definitely make sure to link all of that in the description. Tyler, thank you so much again for doing this. It's always good catching up with you. Let's do it again sometime soon.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me and letting me ramble about my passions. It's a great
Anytime.
thing.
Anytime. All right, man. Take care.
All right, Noah, take it easy.